Emily sat at her kitchen table, a cup of untouched coffee cooling in front of her. Her phone buzzed, and she glanced at the screen, expecting a casual reminder from Daniel about the weekend. Instead, her heart sank. It was a short, cold message from her husband. "Emily, you don't need to come to Michael's wedding. It's a family matter. Everyone agrees it's better if you don't attend. Before we dive in, drop a comment telling me where you're watching from and what time it is. I want to see I'm not alone. If this story moves you, hit subscribe so more people can hear it too. Now here's what really happened." The words hit her like a slap. No warmth, no explanation, just a dismissal, like she was nothing more than a stranger intruding in her own husband's family event. Her fingers trembled as she set the phone down. Did he really just uninvite me? She thought, her chest tightening. This wasn't just any wedding. It was Daniel's younger brother's big day. A celebration she had been preparing for, shopping for a dress, imagining sitting beside her husband, being part of the family. Now, in one cold text, she was erased. Emily's eyes filled with tears, blurring the screen. Her mind raced. She thought of the sacrifices she had made, standing by Daniel when money was tight, comforting him through late-night worries, hosting family dinners where she was barely acknowledged. She had given her all, only to be discarded when it suited him. Humiliation washed over her. She imagined Daniel's family laughing behind her back, whispering about how she wasn't good enough, how she didn't belong. The thought made her stomach twist. But underneath the hurt, a spark lit inside her chest, a quiet, burning flame. They think they can push me aside. They think I'll stay silent. Emily wiped her tears with the back of her hand, her trembling turning into a steady resolve. She would not cry her sea. Delve into the shadows this time. They had no idea who they were dealing with. That night, Emily lay awake in the wide, king-size bed she and Daniel shared. The sheets felt cold, empty, just like the space between them had felt for months. She turned onto her side, hugging a pillow close to her chest, and finally let the tears fall. Her mind replayed all the years she had given him, the late nights when Daniel came home frustrated from work, and she'd stay up, cooking him something warm, listening to his complaints. The mornings when she'd iron his shirts and wish him good luck before big meetings, even when he barely muttered a thank you. She remembered the vacations she planned, where she was left to wander hotel gardens alone while Daniel buried himself in his phone, texting his family or colleagues. She remembered birthdays where her smile felt forced because his attention was always elsewhere. And yet, she had stayed. She had stayed because she believed in their marriage, in their vows, in the promise of forever. But lying there now, Emily realized how invisible she had become, a ghost in her own life. The clock ticked past midnight, and still she stared at the ceiling, tears soaking the pillow beneath her. Her sobs were muffled, silent, because even in her pain, she had grown used to hiding her emotions. She thought of the wedding again, how humiliating it would feel when people asked why she wasn't there. What story would Daniel tell? That she was sick? That she didn't want to come? Or would he let them believe the crueler truth, that she simply didn't belong? Her heart ached, but deep inside, something shifted. Each tear rolling down her cheek felt like it was washing away the last traces of her patience. She had been silent for too long. Emily whispered into the darkness, her voice breaking but steadying as she spoke. "Never again. I won't be invisible anymore." And in that moment, the quiet, broken woman began to fade, making room for someone stronger. Emily's tears slowed as memories flooded her mind, memories of a time when things had been different. She remembered the first time she met Daniel. He had been charming, attentive, the kind of man who made a woman feel like the only person in the room. They spent hours talking in a small coffee shop, sharing stories, laughing until their sides hurt. Back then, he wasn't just her husband, he was her best friend, her confidant, her everything. In those early days, Daniel had promised her the world. He had whispered about building a life together, about love being enough to face anything. Emily, with her gentle heart, believed him. She didn't care that his family lived in mansions, drove luxury cars, and dined in exclusive clubs. She was content with his smile, with their little apartment, with dreams bigger than their wallets. But as years passed, Daniel began to change. The charm that once felt genuine turned into arrogance. The warmth in his eyes grew colder, especially when his family was around. Emily remembered dinners at his parents' house, where his mother's sharp gaze lingered on her modest dress, where his brothers smirked at her silence. She remembered how Daniel would sit taller, laugh louder, trying to prove he belonged to them, not to her. It was as though he needed their approval more than her love. When Emily tried to talk to him, Daniel brushed her off. "You don't understand," he'd say. "This is how things are in my family. I can't look weak in front of them." But it wasn't just about strength. It was about pride. And slowly, the man who once held her hand through everything became a stranger who only cared about appearances. Yet Emily never lost her quiet strength. She learned to stand tall in silence, to smile when ignored, to swallow her pain and move forward. What Daniel never saw was that behind her soft eyes was a woman of steel. A woman who could break, yes, but also rebuild herself stronger. As she lay in the dark now, she thought of that strength, the same strength that had carried her through years of feeling less than would now fuel her revenge. Because Daniel may have forgotten who she was, but Emily hadn't. As Emily sat in the silence of her home, the cruel words of Daniel's family echoed louder than ever. She remembered the first Thanksgiving she spent at their grand estate. The dining room table stretched longer than her old apartment, set with crystal glasses and golden silverware. She had worked hard on her pumpkin pie, hoping to impress them, but when she proudly placed it on the table, Daniel's mother, Eleanor, gave a thin smile and said, "How quaint. We usually have desserts from La Belle Patisserie, but I suppose this will do." Her cheeks burned with humiliation that day, though she forced a polite smile. Daniel had laughed it off, never defending her. Then there was Michael, Daniel's younger brother, the very groom whose wedding she was now banned from. Michael had once leaned toward Daniel during a family gathering, speaking loud enough for her to hear. "You sure you couldn't find someone with a little more pedigree?" His smug grin still haunted her, and there were countless little moments, the glances at her clothes when she wasn't wearing designer labels, the way conversations shifted to private jokes she wasn't part of, the way they treated her like a shadow, present but irrelevant. She had endured it all with quiet grace, hoping that over time they would accept her. She had prayed that Daniel would see the pain in her eyes and finally stand beside her, but he never did. His silence cut deeper than their insults ever could. Now, reading his message again, the cancellation of her invitation, it felt like the final blow. He hadn't just chosen his family over her. He had erased her completely, as if she had never been his wife at all. Emily pressed her hands into her lap, nails digging into her skin. The humiliation burned, but beneath it was something else, something sharper. They thought she wasn't good enough. They thought she was invisible. They thought they could toss her aside like an unwanted guest, but soon they would see her not as the outsider they ridiculed, but as the woman who owned the very walls around them. The wedding was meant to be their perfect day. Emily would make sure it became hers. Emily walked into her study the next morning, her eyes still heavy from a sleepless night. The room smelled faintly of sandalwood, and the soft hum of the city echoed beyond the tall windows. She switched on her laptop, her trembling fingers now steady with purpose. The screen lit up with rows of numbers, charts, and reports. Logos of her hotels flashed across the dashboard, gleaming towers in New York, Los Angeles, Miami, Chicago. The proud emblem of her company, Allura Luxury Hotels, shone on every page. She scrolled through the files, a small smile curving her lips despite the storm raging inside her. This was her world, her empire, built from the ground up with sleepless nights, relentless planning, and a refusal to give up. Daniel never knew. She had always kept this side of her life separate. When they met, she wanted him to love her, not her wealth. She dressed simply, lived modestly, and never flaunted her fortune. Daniel believed she managed a few small businesses. But the truth was staggering. She owned some of the most prestigious hotels in the country. And now, fate had dealt her the most ironic card. Emily clicked on the highlighted file for her newest property, the Grand Crest Hotel. An elegant masterpiece of marble and glass, it was the crown jewel of her chain, the one she had personally overseen from its foundation to its grand opening. Her stomach tightened as she read the name of the upcoming event on its calendar. Michael Rebecca's wedding. Her husband's family had chosen her hotel. For a long moment, she simply stared at the screen, torn between rage and bitter laughter. Daniel and his family had excluded her from the wedding, completely unaware that they were celebrating under her roof, walking on her marble floors, dining under her chandeliers. A quiet power surged through her veins. All these years, she had let them believe she was ordinary. All these years, she had swallowed their insults, their cold stares, their laughter at her expense. Now she held all the cards. Emily leaned back in her chair, her lips curving into a calm, determined smile. "You wanted me gone, Daniel, but you're standing in my house." For the first time in years, she didn't feel invisible. She felt unstoppable. The sun dipped low that evening, painting the city skyline in strokes of orange and gold. Emily sat by her office window, her reflection staring back at her in the glass. No longer the fragile woman crying in her bed, but someone sharper, stronger. She closed her eyes and let the silence settle around her. Inside her mind, a single thought echoed like thunder. He thought he erased me from his world, but he's standing on mine. Her heart no longer trembled with heartbreak, it pulsed with resolve. This wasn't just about a canceled invitation anymore. It was about reclaiming her dignity, her voice, her place. She picked up her phone and dialed a familiar number. Within minutes, her hotel manager, Mr. Alvarez, arrived at her office, his notebook in hand, always ready. "Madam, the final arrangements for the wedding are on track," he said, adjusting his tie nervously. "The groom's family has been demanding, but nothing we cannot handle." Emily's lips curled into a faint smile. Demanding. That word described them perfectly. "I want a few adjustments," she said calmly, her tone carrying a weight that made Alvarez straighten. "Discreet but important." She leaned forward, outlining her instructions carefully. Staff positions, seating changes, security details, little details that seemed harmless on paper, but in the grand scheme would place her exactly where she needed to be. "And Alvarez," she added, her voice soft but commanding, "under no circumstances are the family to know who owns this hotel, not until I say so." He nodded firmly. "Of course, madam." After he left, Emily sat back, her fingers steepled. She imagined Daniel's face when he saw her walk into that ballroom. The shock, the fury, the confusion. It would be her victory, not because she wanted to humiliate him, but because he had tried to erase her. She wasn't erased. She was everywhere. In every polished marble tile, in every chandelier crystal, in every key card handed to a guest. This was her empire, and he was about to walk straight into her world without knowing it. Emily stood and gazed out at the skyline once more, her eyes fierce. The storm was coming, and she would be at the center of it, calm, unshaken, and finally seen. The day of the wedding rehearsal arrived, and the hotel glowed with life. Crystal chandeliers cast golden light across the marble floors, and the air was filled with the fragrance of fresh lilies and roses. Guests laughed and mingled in the grand lobby, their expensive attire shimmering beneath the light. Emily stood in the shadows of a balcony overlooking the ballroom, unseen by most. From her vantage point, she could see everything: the lavish decorations, the chatter of relatives, the careful perfection her staff had worked tirelessly to achieve. And then she saw him, Daniel. He stood at the center of it all, his arm draped around his mother's shoulder as she laughed at something Michael had said. His posture was relaxed, his smile wide, his laughter carefree. It was as if Emily had never existed, as if the years they had shared were nothing more than a faded dream. Her chest tightened, the familiar ache returning. She remembered how that smile had once been hers, how his eyes used to search for her in every room. Now he didn't even flinch at her, Buzz. He looked free. Emily's hand gripped the railing. A part of her still hurt, still longed for the man she had once loved, the man who used to hold her hand in crowded places, who promised she'd never feel alone. But another part of her, stronger now, whispered a bitter truth. That man no longer existed. He had chosen pride, arrogance, and his family over her. Her eyes stung, but no tears fell this time. She wouldn't give them the satisfaction of her weakness. Instead, she straightened her back, her gaze hardening. Watching Daniel laugh without a care only fueled her determination. Every giggle, every dismissive smirk from his family, every moment of her erasure, it all built toward one thing, her entrance. They thought she was gone, forgotten, invisible. But soon the doors would open, and she would step into that ballroom not as the unwanted wife, but as the woman who owned every inch of the ground beneath their feet. Emily's heart pounded, not with fear, but with anticipation. The pain was still there, but now it was woven with power. The time was coming. The ballroom is glowing with chandeliers, flowers, and luxury. Emily's own hotel staff running everything with precision. Guests are arriving, music playing, the family glowing with pride. Daniel feels victorious, thinking he erased Emily from this moment. The doors open dramatically. Emily steps in wearing a breathtaking gown, elegant, confident, radiant. Gasps ripple across the room. Whispers spread. Isn't that Daniel's wife? She wasn't invited. Daniel freezes mid-sentence, his face twisting with anger and panic. His mother whispers sharply, "Why is she here? Who allowed her inside?" Emily stands tall, ignoring their glares. Daniel storms toward her, hissing under his breath, "You weren't supposed to be here." Emily calmly replies with a faint smile, "Oh, Daniel, I'm exactly where I belong." She doesn't explain yet. She lets her presence unsettle them. The music falters. The crowd watches, waiting to see what unfolds. Daniel storms toward Emily, trying to hide his panic behind anger. Daniel, through gritted teeth, "Why are you here? I told you not to come. You weren't invited." Emily stands tall, her calmness contrasting his fury. She smiles faintly, her voice steady. "I don't need an invitation to step into my own world, Daniel." Guests lean in closer, murmuring. Tension thickens in the room. Daniel's mother sneers, "How dare you embarrass us like this? You've always been beneath this family." His brother adds mockingly, "This is a private event. Security should escort her out." The family's cruelty is on full display in front of everyone. Instead of breaking down, Emily meets their insults with piercing confidence. Emily, firmly with a cold smile, "Funny, all this luxury, all this celebration, and none of you even realize whose roof you're standing under." Gasps from the crowd. Curiosity grows. Daniel tries to grab her arm, whispering harshly, "Don't make a scene." Emily calmly pulls away, her eyes locked on him. "No, Daniel, you already made the scene when you erased me from your life." The ballroom goes still after Emily's last words. Guests stop mid-bite, forks frozen in the air. A live band misses a note before trailing into awkward quiet. All eyes fix on Emily, standing radiant in her gown, unshaken by the storm around her. Emily's voice cuts through the silence. "This hotel, every chandelier above your heads, every plate of food you've eaten tonight, every room you've slept in, belongs to me." Her words echo across the grand ballroom like thunder. Gasps ripple through the hall. A bridesmaid whispers, "She owns this." A waiter, suddenly standing taller, beams with pride at their true boss. Daniel's aunt drops her wine glass. It shatters on the marble floor. Daniel stares, pale, as if his world just collapsed. His mother clutches her pearls, sputtering, This can't be true." His brother fumbles for words, his smugness erased. Emily looks directly at Daniel, unflinching. I let you believe I was ordinary, Daniel. I wanted to see if you loved me for me, not for my wealth. Tonight, I got my answer. Her calm tone carries more weight than his family's years of insults. Guests begin whispering in awe and admiration. Someone in the back claps once. Then another joins, and the sound slowly spreads, filling the room with thunderous applause. Daniel's family is forced to stand in humiliation, while Emily basks in newfound respect. The applause still lingers, but now the staff step forward. The head manager bows slightly and says loud enough for the crowd to hear, "Yes, Madam Owner. Shall we proceed as per your instructions?" The room buzzes with gasps. Confirmation that Emily is, indeed, the true power here. A guest whispers, "So, all those 5-star resorts, they're hers?" Another adds, "Daniel married up and didn't even realize it." The murmurs grow into open chatter, admiration for Emily, pity for Daniel, gossip flying like sparks. Waiters and servers straighten their uniforms, proud to work under her. One young staff member smiles at Emily. "We're honored to have you here tonight, madam." The family, once so arrogant toward her, now look helpless and out of place in her kingdom. Daniel shifts uncomfortably, his face burning red. For the first time in his life, he feels small, insignificant, as though the floor itself is slipping from under him. He tries to speak, but no words come. His voice fails him. Emily doesn't need to raise her voice. She simply stands tall, her presence commanding more than any insult or threat could. Emily, softly but with steel in her tone. "Funny, isn't it, Daniel? You tried to erase me from your world, and now you realize you've been living in mine all along." The guests begin clapping again, this time louder, some even standing in ovation. The family is left isolated, exposed in their cruelty. Daniel's mother's face twists in shame. His brother looks away, avoiding the stares. Emily steps forward, her heels echoing against the marble floor. Her voice carries across the ballroom, calm but sharp. "I wasn't supposed to be here tonight. I was uninvited. But as the owner of this hotel..." She lets the silence hang before finishing. "I decide who stays and who leaves." Daniel's mother gasps, clutching her son's arm. "She wouldn't dare." His brother hisses under his breath. "This is impossible. She's bluffing." But the staff immediately bow their heads toward Emily, confirming her authority. The ballroom erupts in whispers. She could throw them out right now. Imagine being tossed from your own wedding venue. Some guests smirk at the family's downfall, others cheer Emily's courage. Daniel's pride crumbles as he steps closer, lowering his voice. "Emily, don't do this. Please, think about appearance." She meets his eyes with an icy calm. "You should have thought about appearances when you erased your wife from the guest list." A few distant relatives, embarrassed by the family's behavior, quietly excuse themselves. One bridesmaid whispers to another, "I'd rather be on Emily's side." The gossip spreads, like wildfire, burning the family's reputation in real time. Daniel's mother tries to save face. "We'll leave, if that's what you want, but you'll regret humiliating us." Emily smiles faintly, her tone unshaken. "No, you regret underestimating me." The ballroom is tense, every guest waiting for Emily's next move. Daniel stands in the center, his suit wrinkled, his pride shattered, his family huddled in silence. Emily slowly steps toward him, her gaze locked on his. Her voice is steady, filled with both sorrow and strength. "You erased me from your life, Daniel. Tonight, I erase you from mine." Gasps ripple through the crowd. The words hit harder than any public humiliation. They strike at his very soul. Daniel stammers, "Emily, wait, I can explain." But his words fall flat. For the first time, he looks small, a man stripped of power, left only with regret. He reaches for her hand, but she calmly pulls away. Emily turns gracefully, her gown flowing like a queen's robe. As she walks toward the exit, staff part the way with respect. Guests watch in awe. some even applauding softly. Her every step is a statement, dignity reclaimed. Daniel stands frozen, his family whispering in panic behind him. The once proud man is now reduced to nothing more than a guest in his wife's world. His reflection in the ballroom's grand mirror shows not power, but emptiness. Before leaving the hall, Emily pauses at the doorway, turns slightly, and says, "Consider this your last night under my roof." With that, she walks away. Strong, untouchable, free. The night air is cool as Emily steps out of the grand ballroom. The hotel lights glow behind her, not as reminders of pain, but as symbols of her strength. She takes a deep breath, the weight of betrayal lifting from her shoulders. No longer the invisible wife, no longer the woman erased. Emily is standing tall, her identity shining brighter than ever. Her eyes glisten, not with tears of sorrow, but with the fire of freedom. Her voice echoes softly in her mind as if speaking to every woman who has ever been silenced. Never underestimate the quiet ones. They carry storms within them, storms strong enough to change everything. Emily walks down the hotel steps, each step steady and sure. Guests peer out the glass doors, some in awe, some inspired. A few whisper, "She's unstoppable." The camera of the story lingers on Emily as she gets into her car, the city lights reflecting on her determined face. She smiles faintly, her future wide open, her past finally behind her. If Emily's journey moved you, imagine how many more powerful stories are waiting for you here. Don't just watch. Be part of this community of strength and resilience. Hit that subscribe button, turn on the bell icon, and share this video with someone who needs a reminder of their own power. Your support keeps these stories alive, and together, we rise stronger.